CNN producer Joel Labi joins me now on the line from Tel Aviv. And Joel, you've been near the scene for quite some time now. What is the situation, and is the chaos subsiding?
Hi, Amara. Yes, finally. It's now midnight in Tel Aviv, and only in the last few minutes have protesters started to move on. The crowd looking much more scattered than it was a couple of hours ago, where there were hundreds, if not thousands, of people in Rabin Square. Just to give your viewers an understanding of the positioning of this square as well, it's basically in the heart of Tel Aviv, surrounded by a shopping mall known as Azrieli, one of the more popular ones, which is surrounded by highways. So at 3 p.m., 9 hours ago, the entire area was shut down for what was supposed to be a peaceful protest. And within the hours ensuing, it turned incredibly violent. We saw a couple of dozen police officers injured, water cannons used, tear gas used. It seems that Tel Aviv is not used to. This is probably the more culturally diverse part of Israel, and definitely one that caters to a lot of protesting, but never on this scale. And the organisers of this protest have been drawing comparisons to what we've been seeing in Baltimore over the last few days as well, where racial vilification has played a major role. And that's the point of the Ethiopian Jews here, that they claim they're racially vilified, and that this video that has gone viral around the world is only a small indication of what the community faces here. Also, Jewish community clashing with Jewish community, something that has not been seen on this scale in Tel Aviv in a very, very long time, Amara. So the police now starting to disperse the crowd. There are much fewer numbers here than what we saw earlier in the evening. But the big worry now for law authorities is whether there's going to be more to come in the days ahead, because the organisers have been warning that this is only the beginning.
9 hours into all of this, finally you're seeing some of the crowds dispersing, and obviously some calm finally coming over Tel Aviv. Let me ask you more about this video, though. Just explain to our viewers who are seeing this video for the first time what exactly happens and what we know about the police officers involved and this Israeli soldier of Ethiopian descent who is being beaten by the police officer.
Well, Amara, one of the great mysteries about this video is that even though it's gone viral, the police involved and the IDF soldier involved, not much is actually known about the background of this situation. We know that there were the police officers that stopped this soldier. He was, as you can see in the footage, pretty viciously attacked, and there was a rock that he picked up at some point as well. However, the difference being that he actually managed to get up and looked rather unscathed from what would still be a traumatic incident. However, the point of the video being for the Ethiopian community that this is just unacceptable behaviour. However, they are, as I mentioned before, drawing comparisons to the video of Freddie Gray and the footage that surfaced with him. The difference being, though, that luckily this IDF soldier managed to walk away unscathed in comparison to what happened in the United States. But still, it's managed to gain, managed to gain an international audience. And this is the sort of leverage that the community will be using to push on an issue that it has been saying is long overdue for addressing.
As you mentioned, as you drew some comparisons to what we're seeing in the U.S. city of Baltimore, and just like Baltimore, this incident of police brutality in Israel is just a piece of the bigger problem that many of the Ethiopian Jews have been angry and upset about for many, many years. They've complained of discrimination, racism, and poverty. Can you just delve into those issues a little bit? Because this is something that has persisted for decades, and now it's finally reached a boiling point.
Absolutely. So, to give your viewers an understanding, the Ethiopian Jewish community in Israel is actually one of the larger migrant communities. About between 120 and 140,000 actually live in Israel, and Israel's population is roughly between 6 and 7 million. So that's a fairly large number. Many of them don't live within Tel Aviv, however. There are some rural communities, some desert communities where many of these Ethiopians actually live. I've in fact been to one of them called Yerucham, which is in the middle of the desert, and it's fair to say that the community is dilapidated. What the Ethiopian community is saying, though, is that we are Jews. We are Jews who come to Israel like migrants from, anywhere from northern Africa to Eastern Europe. However, their living conditions, their education rights, etc., have far outweighed what the Ethiopian community has been experiencing, and that there has been some sort of of racial discrimination on both a political level and even on a physical level when it comes to law enforcement authorities. The community is now saying that it has had enough. And this is going to be something that what may have been a small election issue only a matter of weeks ago is now at the forefront of Israeli politics. It's the leading news story on every network that I've been able to cast my eye on tonight. Every Israeli paper is now reporting about this. And this is going to be an issue that now Prime Minister Netanyahu will no longer be able to ignore. And perhaps that is the very outcome that the community wanted from these demonstrations tonight, to finally get the voice that it says it's been lacking for many, many years.
Joel, I'm curious to know if you've had a chance to talk to some of the people there on the ground. Not the protesters, but other citizens who've been observing. I know it's after midnight now there in Tel Aviv, but as you said, this is a major news story catching a lot of people by surprise. Again, we're talking about Tel Aviv, which is a global city. It's an economic and cultural hub, and this is just a rare sight to see locals pitted against authorities. What are people saying about this?
From the few that I've spoken to here, they're in disbelief. Rabin Square is usually the centre of celebration. Obviously, apart from the horrors that happened in the mid-90s involving the former Prime Minister, ever since then, it has been a sanctuary of peace and peaceful demonstration, concerts, etc. It is the site of gathering. What we've seen tonight is almost unprecedented in its level of intensity and level of violence. And I actually know a few people that live in that vicinity, within 100 metres of Rabin Square, and just speaking to them this evening, they are in disbelief, seeing police on horseback outside their window chasing protesters down one of the main arteries of Tel Aviv, which is filled with restaurants and nightclubs, and on any other evening would be full. Tonight, the scene of absolute chaos, and only now are they starting to mop up from what was a very ugly protest. This is, as I mentioned, something that Tel Aviv is not used to, especially this late in the evening on a Sunday as well, when many people are winding down, ready for their second day of work here. For this protest to have gone on for this long as well has really caught a lot of locals by surprise. I know when I was, talking about this only a matter of hours ago, when just happened to hear in passing there was a protest, my colleagues and I here thought that this would blow over by 7 p.m. We're now at midnight and it's still going on.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people felt the same way as you did, and as you say, just shocked to see these images, police on horses trying to disperse the crowds, water cannons being used, you see that there, also stun grenades being thrown into the crowds as well. And as you say, Joel, this is something Tel Aviv is not used to at all. I'm curious to know about these 23 officers that have been injured. That's the count we have right now. What kind of injuries are we talking about?
Look, various injuries. Obviously, reports coming in are still the drips and drabs of information that we're able to get. But from what I'm led to believe, we've seen anything from lacerations to bruises. Nothing, thankfully, too serious, but I'm sure as more officers are assessed throughout the night, we'll get a better understanding of what has actually taken place. But I've seen some images from inside the heart of the protest as well, with bloodied and bruised officers. It looks like a very, very physical confrontation, and I suppose it speaks volumes of the response as well, the water cannons and the tear gas and police on horseback that have been literally chasing protesters down the street to move them on as well. So a response that would probably justify the injuries that the police have suffered here, Amara, because otherwise you probably wouldn't have seen the level of, I suppose, the level of tactics that the police have used in trying to break up this crowd so quickly.
Just extraordinary images that we're seeing. Joel Labi, CNN producer, great having you there on the ground and giving us your accounts of what you've been hearing and seeing. Thank you so much for that.